You may have wondered, can non-human animals learn human languages? The first attempt to teach a chimpanzee human language was done in the 1930s by W.N. Kellogg and his wife. They attempted to raise a baby chimpanzee in a human environment. The female chimp was named Gua. She was 7 to 8 months old when the project began, and they raised her alongside their own infant, Donald, who was treated as the infant brother of Gua. There was no forcible teaching to Gua. They expected Gua to just pick up the language as their own infant son was doing, but after 9 months, Gua had not learned to talk. About 2 decades later, Keith and Kathy Hayes adopted a chimpanzee named Vicky. They focused on trying to teach Vicky to speak, so there was teaching involved. They believed that the vocal tract of chimpanzees was very similar to that of humans, similar enough that they could produce human speech sounds. However, scientists at that time, more familiar with vocal tracts, were already claiming that this is actually not correct. There are many differences between the chimpanzee and human vocal tracts. Teaching Vicky to vocalize on command took 5 weeks. After 3 years, Vicky could only say 3 words, Mama, Papa, and Cup, in a heavy chimp accent that sounded like whispering. The couple believed that Vicky was understanding more than she was producing, but there's really no scientific evidence for this claim. In the 1960s, Alan and Beatrice Gardner taught sign language, American Sign Language, to an older female chimpanzee named Washoe, and the world has not been the same since. They did not speak English around Washoe, but instead created lessons to teach Washoe to learn sign language. The lessons generally went as follows. Washoe would be shown an object and then shown the sign for that object. The project was the most successful of all of the prior chimpanzee language studies. By 5 years of age, Washoe had learned 132 signs. She also produced novel combinations of signs. These would have been combinations she'd never seen before, but she made meaning on the spot. So one day she saw a swan on a lake, and she signed water and signed bird, and together it meant water bird. Another one, which is quite funny, is that she used the combination Dirty Roger to refer to a trainer named Roger, whom she didn't like very much. A very long-running study to teach a non-human primate language is the study of Coco the gorilla. Her teacher, Francine Patterson, taught her sign language since the 1970s. Coco passed away in 2018 at the age of 47. She could understand speech up to 2,000 different words of spoken English, and she could produce up to 1,000 different signs in American Sign Language. Coco also produced new combinations of signs. Once she saw a ring, and she didn't have a word for that, but she signed the sign for finger and the sign for bracelet to make a new combination for her finger bracelet. And one day she was dealing with a trainer that she didn't like very much, and she put together 3 signs, calling him a dirty toilet devil. She also showed an awareness of the speech sounds of English, so she would be able to pick out rhyming words, signs that refer to objects that when spoken in English created rhymes, like hair and bear, or I, the eye on your face versus I, the pronoun. One of the most interesting chapters in this history of teaching non-human primates language is the case of Nim Chimpsky. Herbert Terrace was professor at NYU in the 1970s, and he really didn't like Noam Chomsky. He didn't agree with Noam Chomsky's claims, and he set out to prove him wrong. He took a chimpanzee and attempted to teach the chimpanzee human language. Now, Chomsky believed human language was a human endowment, that it's part of our innate knowledge, and in fact, non-human species would not be able to learn human language. And so Herbert Terrace believed that if he could teach this chimpanzee human language, he would definitely show the world that Noam Chomsky was incorrect. Unlike previous attempts to teach non-human species human language, many of Nim's interactions were videotaped. So we have many hours of videotape footage of his interactions with trainers. Unlike human language learners, Nim almost never initiated signing with the trainer, and only 12% of Nim's signs were spontaneous. The other 40% were imitations of the trainer, and Nim's spontaneous signs were typically to ask for a food reward or a social interaction. Nim was unlike most human language users. He almost never took turns. Turn taking is that normal thing we do in conversation where you talk and then I talk and you talk again and I talk again. Nim was generally interrupting the trainer's signing. At the end of the long study, Herbert Terrace came to the conclusion that Chomsky might actually be right. Nim was not able to master syntax of human language, word order. So most of the two-word sequences that Nim produced didn't have a particular word order. He could produce give and food or food and give, and equally often time frames. His longest utterance seemed to be focused on one particular thing, so the long sequence was just a continuous random ordering of words about eating an orange. Give orange me, give, eat orange me, eat orange, give me, eat orange, give me you. There's a documentary about this research project by Herbert Terrace called Project Nim. It was published in 2011, and it got really good reviews. But I have to warn you, it's probably a 2 or 3 tissue movie because the story is pretty bleak. The story focuses first on how the project started with Nim, but then it breaks down to looking at the researchers themselves and their complicated relationships, and how at the end of the project, what becomes of Nim? Did they continue to look after him after the project was over? And the answer is no. There are other projects that have involved teaching language or other kinds of symbolic systems to non-human species. These include Alex the parrot, bottlenose dolphins, Kanzi the bonobo, and Chaser the border collie. There are links about each of these projects on Canvas. That's all for now.